it's sort of like to me at least, it's like a very off-putting
Right.
kind of personality trait. It's like, I don't know who you are as a human. I just know that you have big ideas.
Right. You're ambitious, but that's all I know about you.
Right. And you're right. That is especially, a lot of people don't like it when women have that.
They hate it.
Yeah, they really don't like it at all.
And I hate it, but I hate it on everybody, so I hope that it's an equal opportunity thing for me.
Yeah, just like an across the board, this sort of personality type is
hide
annoying.
your ambition or make it. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong though. Like lately, I've been wondering if I am in the minority because I notice some people speak positively about people where I'm like, oh, I thought that person felt fake. Oh, maybe that's how you're supposed to. I don't know. You know?
Yeah, I do, because a lot of times I get the feeling that I'm not privy to something that other people know
About that or just generally?
Probably about that specifically. Like, oh, is this what you do? Because I've been in New York for like a few years now, so I remember certain people that I saw a lot, and then I didn't see them for a while, and I was like, oh, I wonder whatever happened to that person. It's like, oh, they've been writing for that show, or they've been in Los Angeles being successful. And I was like, wow, what did I miss? Because we were doing the same bar shows and open mics 3 years ago, you know?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. I also just generally, I meant more like people are like into it. I'm not expressing myself very well. I think it's a separate question to ask whether or not being that kind of person gives you a higher likelihood of being successful in comedy or otherwise. But a question that I was getting at is whether or not people want to be around people like that. I didn't, and I thought most people felt that way. And then as I'm paying more attention, I'm like, no, these really openly ambitious people are attracting people. But the caveat I was saying was usually that means men. Really, really openly ambitious women seem to turn off people.
Yeah.
And that's sexism.
Yeah, that there's definitely sexism, I think, playing into that. I think the people that are attracted to the hyper ambitious are people that are maybe, I don't know if they're people trying to find coattail or get in an entourage or see that person as the key to their ambitions. But it all just seems like kind of a lot of hollow.
Right. Well, see, that's what I was going to say, because don't misunderstand me. And I don't know how you feel, but I love ambitious people. I just don't trust these openly ambitious people who all they seem to be able to talk about when I see them are their ambitions. And the reason why is I think this is bullshit. You're insecure about what it is you're doing. That's why you're telling everyone about it, which means you're not actually working that hard. I actually love ambitious people. I just don't like the openly ambitious. It just feels greasy.
Yeah. There's the kind of openly ambitious that, like, if you and I were to, like, be shooting the shit after a show and they're like, oh, I had this idea for a web series and I've got this written and I want to do more and I want to shoot this video or I want to do this show versus the guy at an open mic who's giving you his card.
Right, exactly. That's exactly what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and hands you his card and talks about, oh, I'm just working on all these projects or whatever. And it's like, what? I just asked you if you saw the game or whatever.
Right. And it's like, and then you look on the back and it has like 5 to 6 social media platform links, 2 of which you've never heard of. Yeah. Because they're hip to it.
Right. They're going to be the new, like, they think that they're going to be the Vine star of whatever that platform is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's exactly who I'm talking about.
People that are trying to get in is like, no, dude, Twitter's dead. You got to get on, like, you got to get on Snapchat. No, dude, Snapchat's dead. You got to get on Instaflack or something.
Like, comedy's dead. That's what died. Stop talking to me.
Yeah. I worry that I'm going to be the first comedian that if it doesn't work out and I'm just going to look back, I don't want to be the first guy to go, man, if only my meme game was stronger. If only I had more of a presence on Reddit.
Oh man.
As far as visibility goes.
I think that'll be your choice. I think just like you're choosing not to do that, you can just choose not to think that that's why. Right.
I'd rather do things that I really like and hopefully find people that really like them as well, because I think there's a higher quality of relationship there.
You mean do what you believe in, and then when you attract fans, you'll keep them forever because you're doing something you believe in? Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably bad. I don't spend a lot of time thinking in that term. I guess because it's not a question for me. It's like...
Well, it's probably not
I'm
good.
still just trying to figure out what it is I want to do and say, and I'm not going to say never because I hate speaking in absolutes, but I don't feel like I'll ever be like, what should I talk about that will attract fans? Although I do like thinking about what are people interested in.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I like to think, and it's probably bad if you think too much about that and are too calculated.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to find things that I really enjoy, that things that I like first, and then hope for the rest of it to kind of fall in place.
That's so funny because I think that accurately describes the main difference between the way you and I do comedy. Because I like to think about what I don't like, and then talk about that, like why I don't like it.
Right.
Like I feel like I come from a very this is what's wrong place on stage.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think of the first time I met you because I feel it was relatively recently. I think we were both on a show at the Creek, and I remember you doing some like a drug story. Where you rolled around on the stage.
So the story is about doing drugs and listening to music, and then the part where I roll on the stage is me talking about music and what I think's wrong with music of today.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking about social media and all the things you just were lamenting.
Yeah.
And then I rolled around the stage while impersonating Jim Morrison. I think we met before that.
Yeah, like one other time.
Yeah. But that's probably the first time you remember me, which I guess is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, because I remember I had seen you before, and then I remember you going on, and then you went on stage at that show, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna stay. This guy's really funny. And then I was just dying watching.
Oh, thank you.
Watching that story, I thought
that's
it was really funny.
hard to do at a bar show.
It is, but like the one time that it happens, it's like a meteorite hitting a.
Oh, thanks. I've definitely done it where it's more like a, what in the hell is going on this stage scenario?
Right.
Where it's like, 6, 7 people and they're just not with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm, as you said, rolling around on stage, and it's just like, what's going on? What's wrong with this guy?
Yeah. Like people, like bar show audiences can't handle anything that isn't like their drunk friend, like the comedy equivalent of like their drunk friend quoting Borat.
I think, yes, maybe. I think it also has to do with the size of the crowd. I think that if people feel anonymous in a crowd, you can get away with more. I've noticed recently, for example, places where the lights are brighter, it's harder to do sex. It's harder to do crowd work. It's harder to do anything mean where there's a victim anywhere because people don't want other people seeing them laugh at these uncomfortable things.
Right.
So I think that's related to what we were just talking about. Like, I'm rolling around, that's weird. If it's dark and there's a lot of people there, you can laugh at this weird guy.
Sure.
But if it's bright and or there's not many people there, it's like everyone's like, oh, I got to also wonder what's going on. I can't connect with this. That's too much.
And what are some of the points you make in that bit about what's wrong with music today? Because that's like one of the 3 things that I can connect with other human beings about. It's like Star Wars and music are the other 2. And the third is soccer.
Right.
So what were, refresh my memory, what were some of those points about what's wrong with music of today?
So the bit is me talking about, I do the stuff about drugs, and in that I'm listening to music, and my wife's like, let's go to bed, and I'm like really connecting to the music or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's about how music is sort of my religion.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is if there's any proof that I can offer to anyone as to why I'm not an atheist or an explanation, it would just be like this. I would just play them a song, whatever was on my mind or heart that day. Mm-hmm. And I know that's cheesy, but it's just how I feel. And I love music, and I think it's unexplainable. I think the more science looks into it, the more mysterious it gets for me. I love it. So that being said, I said, in the bit I'm saying, that's why I'm upset that rock and roll, as we used to know it, is dying. And I don't think that music's gotten worse. I think that's a misnomer. I think there's plenty of great music out there. But
definitely,
popular music has become more I guess, streamlined.
Yeah, it's more a product on a factory.
Right. They know what
as
works.
opposed to like a product that's like made in like a tiny shop.
Right. And they know what works and they go for it. And that's fine. And because of the internet, you can get around that. And that's great. But I do miss a time when mass-produced music was also really amazing.
Right.
And my theory as to why it changed has a lot to do with our give it to me now, let's always be connected culture. Like in the bit, I talk about how something changed when we started being backstage with the rock star after the show, and when the rock star was expected to tweet to their fans. And sure, it's not them, it's one of their publicists or whatever, but the point
Sure.
is we think they're just like us. That was the plan of the industry when they started doing these things. Let's make them more relatable.
Right.
Well, once upon a time, rock stars were not relatable at all. They were shaman. They were priests. They were, and some people would say gods. I mean, rock god is a phrase. It's a.
Yeah, absolutely. They were like a mysterious entity.
Exactly.
That you didn't know what their origin was.
Right.
But they had powers.
Exactly.
That they displayed by their emotional effect on you through singing or through playing or instruments.
Right. And you heard about it or you saw it the 1 or 2 times a year they were on television.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it.
Or when they came to your town.
Right. So you saw it in person, you heard about it from a friend, which is how a lot of religion works, really, if you think
Mm-hmm.
about it. Or, like Elvis would be on television, but people would faint. That's one of the things I talk about in the bit. Elvis would shake his leg, and 16-year-old girls would faint.
Yeah.
That is incredible. And, we see a little bit of that with, the One Directions and the Backstreet. The girls get really excited.
Mm-hmm.
But they're a lot younger girls, so they're more apt to
Right.
believe in these things.
Yeah, they're not cynical yet.
Exactly. And maybe, I don't know how a 16-year-old was in the 50s and 60s. Maybe that's the same. But what I know is not the same is that a whole movement of people believed in, the Doors and the Beatles and some of those people from that era. Led Zeppelin, I mean, the stories you hear about Led Zeppelin, it's insane. Some of them, they're monsters in it. It's like, they supposedly fucked a girl with a fish or whatever.
Yeah, Mud Shark.
And then,
I remember that.
I guess, and I looked it up once on Wikipedia, and they claim it was somebody from another band, and it was totally But the fact that was a thing, whereas now, I mean, I'm sure some of those stories exist, but for the most part, the mystery is attempted to be removed because there's this attempt to make them seem like us, and I think that's a mistake. I think that, and I think that it helped Jack White's career. Remember when everyone didn't know if Jack White and Meg White were brother and sister, or married, or both?
Yeah, I absolutely do.
I think that's great. I think he did that on purpose. I think he was like, no, we're going to throw some mystery back into the rock star.
Mm-hmm.
And I missed that. And I think that it helped. And I think that is a little unrelated. It's related, but it's not exactly. That's one thing that's wrong with music. The other thing that's wrong with music is just the quality of it. And I know everyone says that, but I just think it's true. I think they know what works, and they're afraid. And I get it. They spend so much money.
Right.
They need a sure thing.
Yeah. Like a lot of money gets invested, so you're gonna go with formulas. I remember reading one article where someone said basically all popular music is between this many beats per minute,
right? And
it always gets to the chorus usually within 30 seconds, or the hook,
right?
And you can use, and some of that can be used. I guess there's a certain level that some of that can be used as from a songwriting standpoint. There's this really funny video of Dave Grohl and Kyle Gass backstage at some festival, and Dave Grohl just takes the phrase "life's a bitch." He says, "Oh, with lyrics, you just think of it like a bumper sticker," and then he just plays 3 chords and he sings this incredibly catchy song, just saying "life's a bitch, but keep on trucking" over and over again. But I think and definitely in the game of making pop stars or people that are going to connect with whatever the mass culture is, because there'll be one person that'll squeak through, and then it'll be watered down immediately,
right?
Usually. So I agree with you. What you're saying is that as it becomes more calculated and more something that they can put stats to, it becomes just people doing a job as opposed to people doing the thing they got to do.
Right. And I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with that being a thing that happens, let's figure out how to make really popular music that makes a lot of money. That's totally whatever.
That's a business thought.
Exactly. I don't understand. I have a tough time expressing, anyway, a theory as to why and how the Beatles had so many number one hits, for example, that were legitimately the most popular song at the time, and then, in my opinion, legitimately great and had a lot of artistic integrity. And then these days, that seems to be rare. It seems to be either someone with a lot of artistic integrity who does well in one chart or one demographic, like Jack White. But he never sells more than Katy Perry.
Right.
As an example. I don't know why that happens.
Right.
I wish I did. I wish I could express to you, here's why it happens, and then I could say, and this is why I'm okay with that or why I hate it. But mostly I find it confounding.
Yeah. And this is an analogy I've said before. I think of it like a pop star like Katy Perry, or maybe even Meghan Trainor, if you want to put her in that sort of category.
I don't know who that is.
The All About That Bass.
All About That Bass.
That
no
song.
Trouble. Yeah, okay.
So like they're like the equivalent. I try to compare it to coffee.
Yeah.
So they are the equivalent of like a frappuccino with something with a lot of whipped cream. Very harmless, that a lot of people are going to enjoy at pretty much any given time.
Okay.
Whereas I think someone with a lot of heart and a lot of soul that'll make you feel something is like maybe the equivalent of like a shot of espresso, or espresso macchiato. It's good and you like it, but you maybe can't have it don't want to have it all the time.
And I'm totally fine with that analogy, but now what was going on back in the day when the most popular music also seemed to have a lot of heart? What was going on then? Was coffee brand new, so we just didn't know any better, and espresso was all that we had?
Either that or everybody was on too much creamer to notice.
That was really funny.
That's the only thing I can think of.
I wonder, I just thought this. I wonder if back then, if I sound like some piece of crap fan of popular music to someone who says all the Rolling Stones was a watered down, no heart, frappuccino or whatever your analogy was, version of the blues that they stole from black Southerners and people from Chicago.
Yeah.
Is that, I genuinely wonder this with an open mind and heart. Our future generation is going to be like, this new fucking Justin Bieber album was a masterpiece. Because I don't know if you've heard it at all, but I heard it in the bar the other day, like 2 different times. I was like, who is this? And someone was like, oh, that's Justin Bieber. It's decent.
I heard like one of the newer singles. I can't remember. I don't know what the name of the song is called, but it's actually a pretty decent, catchy pop song.
So do you think that in the future we're just going to sound like, hateful, cynical bastard? Like people are going to be like, no, that was one of the greatest pop records of all time. He completely changed. Or maybe not anyone is going to be that, who we would say, oh, you're just a factory produced whatever.
I think as long as we can keep as long as we can keep our hearts and minds open to the new artists that are going to come, that are going to be the new espresso, in this analogy, I think we can avoid being cynical bastards, because I think when people are like, oh man, music nowadays is terrible, manufactured,
right? I hate that.
Flags of the Jeff Rattles of the cultural zeitgeist, man. I think those guys are just angry that the stuff that they were listening to around the time they started getting laid is not relevant anymore.
That's exactly what it is. And I hate that, because as I was saying earlier, music is great right now. It's just that
you got to work at it.
The top 40 on the Billboard charts may not be your thing, or you may not like any of that. You may say, this is crap, this is fine. But music, oh my God, and rap is ridiculous right now, and I'm too ignorant to go into a detailed conversation about it, but just like, I feel like I got a good friend who sends me stuff. I feel like every other week he's sending me something that blows my mind, where I'm just like,
it's important to have that guy. What
is going on? How is this person flowing like this? Or I can't believe a 19-year-old is saying these things, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like the first time someone sends you "Run the Jewels" or something like that, it's like, wow, I didn't know
Well, I knew
this
who
was
Killer
possible
Mike
anymore.
was before, so that one wasn't one. But yes, that's the kind of thing I'm getting at, where it's like
Mhm.
"Run the Jewels," especially because it was prophetic.
Yeah,
Like it sounds like an anthem to what's going on in America with the justice system and Black Lives Matter.
hmm
But it came out before that was part of the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Now those issues were there. I don't mean it predated
No, yeah,
the issues,
they-
but it predated the hashtags.
right. It predated everybody
Right.
talking about it.
Right. Well, that's what's great about Killer Mike.
Yeah, yeah. I've got to go back and listen to more of his stuff.
Listen to Reagan, which was a track before Run the Jewels even got together.
Okay, Reagan.
Yeah, it might be called "Fuck Ronald Reagan," actually.
Nice. Because I like grew up. I was a big after I got out of my rap metal phase.
That's a great phase. Sounds like.
I went through I was listening to a lot once I got out of pop punk and was starting to learn what like hardcore punk and like original punk rock is. So many songs about fuck Ronald Reagan.
Really?
Yeah. Like every punk band from like DC at the time had a fuck Reagan song.
That's great.
Yeah, like there's certain tropes of every musical genre, and maybe you can identify with this. There's certain tropes or types of songs that
Well, yeah.
repeat.
I mean,
that
country music got ruined.
that I really like. Yeah, this is what I want to talk to you about, because you're from Tennessee, right?
Yes.
So country music is probably like in your blood a little bit, right?
I would say yes to that. Mostly Leonard Skinner, but a lot of country music too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Can you tell me like the first country record Can you tell me the first country record you listened to where you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is really great." Like what was the first country album that like really blew your mind open?
Honestly, probably Jason Isbell or Sturgill Simpson, which would have been in the last 3 or 4 years.
Okay, yeah.
The reason why
Not bad.
is because I grew up listening to a lot of 90s country, which was great. There's a very specific thing when you say 90s country. Garth Brooks completely changed Nashville. He completely changed Nashville. Nashville did not know what to do with him when he got there. He sold 1 billion records, and they were like, oh, well, this is the new formula. And it was the formula for a little while. So now there's songs that really, really have stayed with me through the years. A lot of Dolly Parton stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She's from East Tennessee, and she would sing about things I could really identify with. A lot of the religious stuff reminded me of growing up. And then just her voice. She sounds like everyone's grandma where I'm from, but like better,
Right.
you know.
Uh-huh.
George Strait had some great ones. Amarillo by Morning is a song I've loved since I was 8 years old, and I get in arguments with my friends back home all the time that it's his best song. Everyone else says it's Cheyenne.
Mm-hmm.
Back to Cheyenne is the name of it. These are all like 90s country superstars.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
before Garth Brooks.
yeah, and then, well, around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a young guy to a lot of these folks.
Okay.
Yeah. Strait and Dolly came around in the 80s. And
Gotcha.
then Garth Brooks, you know, he had a band. He had great live shows. It was sort of rockish. It was super pop.
Mm-hmm.
And it was phenomenal. And I mean, and I say that with no irony. I don't care what anyone says. Garth Brooks is one of the greatest American musicians, and his band has played some of the most incredible pop records.
Mm-hmm.
They're country, quote unquote. But when you hear people talk about how country went pop, Garth Brooks is the beginning of that.
Right.
He invented it, and now it's been honed down to a formula.
And was Shania Twain around this time?
She was later.
Awesome. She was
So she's part of what country music's response is to the Garth Brooks
to
scenario.
Garth Brooks.
Yeah.
So Garth Brooks hits, and then so Nashville is always the big industry town for country music.
Yes.
So Garth Brooks hits, and then all of Nashville decides, okay, metaphor-free lyrics and songs about your truck. How do we get from
No,
Because Garth Brooks
is great.
Garth Brooks is
Yeah.
great. So let me rephrase that. I didn't mean to be to oversimplify it. So,
That unfortunately is the result of the path he started.
right. So can you tell me how you get from Garth Brooks, who has some heart and I would consider an artist?
Totally.
How do you get from him to we're not going to have metaphors in any of the lyrics. We are going to sing songs about your truck and leaving work early? How does it get to
Money. Garth Brooks has outsold the Beatles by some metrics. And so Nashville, of course, had to say, well, how'd that happen and why? And he expanded his fan base. His fan base was everyone that George Strait was selling to.
Mm-hmm.
They were buying those albums too. So like the farmer in Wyoming was buying Garth Brooks records.
Right.
But also like teenagers in Connecticut were. And it was the beginning of Nashville being like, wait, we can sell country music outside of the South and the Midwest?
Mm-hmm.
And not just a little bit. Like, we can really sell country music. And Garth Brooks was the first one to do that, because if you look at some songs like The Thunder Rolls, do you know that song?
Oh, I love that song.
It's a great song.
Great song.
That's not a country song.
No.
He just has an accent.
Exactly. He has an accent, but anyone else could sing that. It'd be a rock and roll song.
Exactly. So, and it was great rock and roll. All right, so we can make rock and roll music in Nashville. Great, let's do that. Wait a minute. Why would we make rock and roll music? That's really hard to make.
Right.
Why don't we just make pop music? We don't even need to hire anyone new or get a new talent in here or do what Garth Brooks did and reinvent a formula. We'll just put an accent on the old formula.
Right.
Country music right now is adult contemporary pop.
Yeah, it is, like Lady Antebellum, and
yes.
I don't know what Nickel Creek are doing nowadays, but
I knew them when they first started out and they were playing more bluegrass stuff, so I don't know what they're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
It was pop bluegrass, but it was bluegrassy.
Yeah.
But yeah,
or the
Florida Georgia line.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Fire. I hope their tour bus explodes right now.
I know, they're the worst.
This is the worst.
They're the worst.
Worst.
They make me angry.
Oh my God, they're the Nickelback of country music.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And it's like, and it's not that I don't hate, like, let's have a party, it's the weekend kind of vibe of songs, but I just don't like when they do it.
Well, Zach Brown is a perfect counterexample. He has a lot of it's the weekend, let's party songs, and almost none of them have cliches. If they do, they're not full of them. Like, he'll say fried chicken every once in a while, but look, in the South, this is what we do.
Yeah.
And his stuff is great. It's great.
Oh yeah, I know. I haven't listened to everything he's done, but he puts out a lot of good stuff, and he covers Rage Against the Machine.
What's
live.
he say? He's a jam band guy who just has an accent. So I think that's the good and the bad of Garth Brooks. Is Garth Brooks said, "Hey guys, Nashville, we can make whatever songs and music we want," and people like Zach Brown said, "Oh shit, we can." So I can cover Rage Against the Machine, but people like the producers and the executives went, "Oh yeah, we can. I'll just make Britney Spears, but I'll put her in cowboy boots."
Right. So and again, it's
Shania Twain.
And then again, you have the machine turning it into an assembly line for profit.
And it didn't die completely. I think that the Dixie Chicks, who made so much money, made great music. Formulaic, I guess, but a different formula. And then there's some other people. Shooter Jennings makes pretty good music. Eric Church, when he first came out, was a little less formulaic. Now he's making a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
I think Brad Paisley is formulaic but very talented, and his guitar playing is super.
No,
unique.
he can play. I heard him do a cover of "Sharp Dressed Man."
Yeah,
by ZZ Top.
Yeah,
he can play. He's got
been
a fun
playing guitar since he was like 14.
Yeah, and he still will have the fun fishing song.
I'm going fishing.
Yeah,
that's a great song.
That's a great song. Or I'll even admit this. This might be a bit of a guilty pleasure. How do you feel about Darius Rucker from Hootie's country albums?
Well, I haven't listened to the country albums. I love Hootie and the Blowfish. I think that I was the right age for it. You know what I mean? It was great. It was emo, but with a good melody.
Right.
I don't.
How old were you when they broke? That was like in '94.
In '94, I was probably a little too young, but by '98, I was in 8th grade. So probably '97, I was in 7th grade. Around that time, that's when I got a hold of them, and Let Her Cry. Like, you're in 7th grade.
Yeah.
And you can sing along because it's 3 chords. So so with no musical talent, you can you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, you can pull that out at a party.
I think I learned how to play that on the guitar, 2nd or 3rd song.
I saw them live a few years ago. They played the Volunteer Firehouse. There's has this huge stage and field behind it in the town where I grew up. and they were great.
I bet.
They
those
put
are
on-
studio musicians.
Yeah, they put on a really entertaining show, 2 encores.
Yeah.
Had a pretty awesome cover of Champagne Supernova.
Do you know what that reminds me of? Is
What's that?
Mumford and Sons.
They're another one of those bands that
They're
are
so tight live. It's unbelievable.
yeah.
They're great.
Yeah, I haven't seen them live yet, but I really want to.
They win people over every live, especially festivals. That's why they play festivals too. Because I've seen it at festivals where they start out playing and everyone's like, oh, they let them headline again. And then, like, in spite of themselves, everyone starts having a great time.
Right,
And,
it's like,
people trickle in.
And be like, that's why they have them headline again.
Yeah. Yeah, they're like a really good orchestra or something. It's just like the sound is so big and they're so tight. Well, and again, this goes back to how corny I am about music. It's undeniable.
Yeah.
It's undeniable.
Yeah, that's that old trick. Like any like industry podcast where people talk about, oh, how do you make it in entertainment? It's be undeniable.
Right.
And we're all trying to figure out what.
Right, but I think that
is.
music as an art form itself. I know one person who claims to hate music, and he's a hateful person.
Yeah, well, he doesn't deserve any joy in his life.
Right,
He's
no
a
joy.
person.
I think secretly he cries. That's why he doesn't want to listen to it. I think it makes him cry.
It's possible.
That's what I believe in my heart. That when no one's around, he turns on opera. Italian ladies make him bawl. That's
Yeah,
my
and
theory.
he just puts on like a cloak.
Yeah.
Has like a cloak and just starts like half of a mask. Just starts
Breaks
really
out in
feeling
hives.
it. Just really starts feeling it,
Yeah.
you know. So you're coming. So you come of age with music in your like preteens.
Yeah, I would say come of age. That's an interesting question. So like growing up, it was all Dolly Parton, a lot of gospel. My parents are very religious, and then Leonard
What kind of
Skinner.
religion?
My dad is a Baptist preacher. He didn't start preaching until I was 14. I was raised in a Baptist. Before Baptist church, it was some kind of independent church that I don't remember. And then my mom started going to a Baptist church. My dad didn't go to church at this time.
Music an important part of the Baptist experience.
Yeah, we'd play our own, and it would be 3 or 4 chords, capoed, or someone would play on the piano by ear. And these are just old hymns. And it's inside me. It's the way I hear music now is that way. Like if I ever write something down myself, if you break it down, it's just a gospel hymn.
Wow.
It's just in me. So it was that, and it was Leonard Skinner. My dad listened to Leonard Skinner tapes in his truck exclusively. So literally every time I was with my dad, I think I know every Leonard Skinner song. If I don't know necessarily the words that I can sing along, like I've definitely heard it.
Okay.
Including covers, because he had all their that are recorded.
Like
He
all
had
the
their
bootlegs
live.
and all the B-sides.
As far as I know, I mean, I'm
Nice.
sure he missed some, but yeah,
Sure.
that was before the internet.
And where'd you go to high school?
I went to a place called the Sunbright High School.
Where's that?
It's in Sunbright, Tennessee, near Oak Ridge, Tennessee, which is next to Knoxville. It's like an hour from Knoxville, middle
So-
of nowhere. I graduated high school with 43 people.
43 people in your graduating class.
Yeah.
Wow.
not
I
a
thought I
private.
had a small graduating class. I had like, I think a couple hundred.
Yeah.
So, wow. So rural country living.
That was it.
As they say. Let me ask you this too. You're from Tennessee. People from New York, I'm from Maryland. People from New York think I'm from the South,
That's interesting.
but I don't think I am.
You're not.
Maryland isn't. I mean, yeah, there's Southern accents in parts of Maryland, but
Really?
I don't consider it
Even
the
that
South.
surprises me. You guys are very culturally different, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know that for sure. One thing, this is an interesting thing to associate with it. Obviously, there's the Civil War stuff, and like that becomes a big thing for some people. I think football's huge. I think the
Yeah.
SEC, like Maryland is so far removed from the Southeastern Conference of football. That,
Right.
like, growing up, what I understood as the South, it meant certain things. It meant music, it meant religion, and it meant football. And all those things come together to make a part of our culture.
Okay.
I don't think any country music stars come out of Maryland. If they do, they don't tout that that's where they're from. They hide it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, not that I'm aware of. There's this guy called there's this group called the Sam Grow Band that are from Maryland, but I think that's the only one that's really coming to mind. So yeah, because football's like American football is like huge in the South. Is it the Tennessee Titans where you're
It's
from?
like where I'm from, it's offensive that you said American football. That's how
I'm
football is. No, I'm not mad. I'm just making a point that that's how important football
Be
is.
like it's football.
Yeah,
Now leave
yeah.
my country.
Exactly. Queer and something horrible like that.
Yeah.
The Titans are pretty big. College is bigger. I'm from East Tennessee, which is about 3 hours from where the Titans play. And the Titans came when I was like 12, so it's a new thing. And they're big there. Nashville loves their Titans, and I love the Titans. I cheer for the Titans. But college football is just huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's
tailgating, rivalries, Saturday. Used to be like the radio play-by-play men for each school. They were celebrities as recently as a decade ago. Now, like less so. But like John Ward, the voice of the Vols, UT Volunteers, may rest in peace. He was a celebrity in Tennessee, and people from other schools and other states knew who he was.
Wow.
And he would do the radio.
And it's just like an ingrained part of the culture.
Right. We would watch this game on TV and turn the sound off and listen to John Ward. Going back to country music, do you know who Kenny Chesney is?
Yeah.
He's a huge pop country guy. He makes like beach music, but he's from East Tennessee, and he has a song called Touchdown Tennessee, and it's about John Ward. It's a whole song dedicated to and about John Ward.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So,
2015, this is a lyric. 2015, 10 and 5. Your voice was our eyes and we could see. Touchdown Tennessee.
I gotta listen to that song because normally every time someone tries to write a sports song, it always comes off like a kind of like a fight song almost, or like a more, big like marching band thing.
It's more melancholy because he was retiring, and now that he's passed, it's super sad,
super melancholy. Does he still play it?
It's not great by any means. Probably, I don't know. I don't go to his concerts.
Right.
Fuck Kenny Chesney.
Right. Yeah. So you're.
Although Back Where I Come From is a great song.
Yeah.
It's about East Tennessee. It's really good.
Cool. So you graduate high school with 40 people.
Yeah.
What happens after that? Do you go to college or?
Yeah, I was 17 and I went to college. I graduated when I was 17. I was the youngest one in my class. I went to college in Maryville, which is right outside of Knoxville. It was about an hour and a half from my house, which I thought at the time was far away, which is funny and I guess typical of someone who grew up in a town that small.
Yeah. Well, I went to college an hour and a half away, and I thought I was in the big city.
Right.
When I went to Towson.
Right, I did too because I was close to Knoxville, so that counted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this is like new world and music's coursing through you. What are you studying?
I started out English and writing, and I switched to political science. And I didn't know why. I just liked the class better.
So, political science. So did you? So you always had an interest in writing and
yeah,
politics?
I always had an interest in writing. I never had an interest in politics.
Yeah.
I think that I just like the international side of it. I think like thinking about the world in big terms appealed to me. I don't know. I mean, I was an ignorant hick, and I was just like, oh, political science, that's whatever.
Yeah.
Suits me. I think too, I looked at some of the people in my writing and English classes, and I was like, and it's a shame that I thought in these terms. It truly is. But I think I was like, oh, I'm not like them, and not in a bad way. Like maybe in a self-deprecating way. I was like, I shouldn't be here. Kids who just had read so many classical novels and they had tattoos and they cried a lot, and like me now would make fun of those kids, but me at the time I was like, oh man, something's missing about me. I don't belong here. I'm a jock. Or whatever, because I played sports in college.
Sure. What'd you play?
Football.
What position were you?
Safety.
What? And I know so little about this sport.
Defense.
Say what does
I guarded
the safety
receivers
do?
and then tackled, the running back. If
Gotcha.
they came to
So the person trying to get the quarterback, you get in the way of that guy.
No. So the person trying to get the quarterback would probably be like the defensive lineman. I would literally guard the receivers, the person the quarterback's trying to throw the football to.
Okay.
Like I would be guarding them, playing defense on them.
Okay. All right, so you played sports in college. Did you graduate with a degree in political science?
Yes, and a minor in writing. That's how that ended up.
Interesting. Let's see. I'm trying to trace how comedy plays into your life. You are a fascinating human being.
I think
Drew.
on paper, maybe, yeah. Well, comedy started before that. I was obsessed with it growing up. Like I remember my uncle bringing over like Jeff Foxworthy tapes so everyone can listen to them.
That was the first comedy I heard too.
And I didn't think it was as funny as everyone else did, but I loved the rhythm. And I think the first comedy I ever listened to though was Jerry Clower, who is a storyteller / comedian who had tapes, who's like literally from the 50s, that my mom would listen to his tapes, and they had these long stories, and I do long form now, as you were just referencing.
Sure.
And I think I was maybe influenced by that. I don't know. Also, I'm influenced by a lot of preachers growing up, so that's part of it too.
Yeah.
But in high school and in junior high, I watched Comedy Central instead of whatever else. And then the way some people get obsessed with music, as I was saying earlier, I'm super into music now. But in high school, like, I would listen to music, and I was really into the Rolling Stones and Pink Floyd, which was weird because my friends were into whatever else. But like, I connected with comedy in a strange way. Like, I would watch Comedy Central and look back then. Comedy Central was a lot of stand-up.
Yes, it was.
I have seen so many 30 minutes, half-hour Comedy Centrals. Like,
is there one that you remember really sticking
Greg
out to you?
Fitzsimmons.
Okay, yeah.
Loved it. I mean, in some of his jokes, it was perfect too, because like Pablo Francisco or somebody like that was very funny to a 14-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
But I think even then I could tell, maybe because I was kind of a smart kid or whatever, you're doing the same thing. Like, I get it. You can do voices. Like, I didn't shit on him by any means, and I'm not shitting on him now. He's hilarious. But that was great, but I didn't really connect with it. But the thing about Greg Fitzsimmons was amazing comedian, amazing joke writer, but he had enough kind of, I don't want to say juvenile, but like stuff that a 14-year-old would be shocked by. That I just this guy, you know what I mean? Because he was the best, but also shocking. Right. And you're at 14, if you're a guy, I mean, not everybody obviously, but for me, like, I was like he has one about seeing Ron Jeremy at a gas station, and he knew it was him because when he got done pumping his gas, he pulled out and sprayed the hose all over the front of the car. Now, at 14, I thought that was the funniest thing. Looking back on it, I go watch his special. He also was a great joker. He wasn't just making those jokes about pulling out like that. I mean, he had some really, really good stuff. He wrote for the Ellen Show. Like, he's brilliant. So that was my favorite in high school. Yeah.
Yeah, that's because I talked to Mark Reese also. Yep. I think you know him, and because I relate to that too. There's something about comedy, how important those Comedy Central was in those half hours too. Yeah. I
think it's why our open mics are flooded, though.
People our age.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, also because this is January when we're talking like everyone's New Year's resolution to finally try stand up.
Yeah.
They're doing it, and God bless them if they stick with it.
Yeah, I mean, the next Chappelle might come out of that crop, but like, so many people just, I don't know. I try not to complain about it because it's like, it's good in a way. I need more competition, and I don't want the art form to die, et cetera, et cetera. It just feels strange. I think the problem is, like, with music, like, you have to at least believe you can sing or know how to play the guitar or both.
Right.
In stand-up, I've noticed that people can convince themselves that they should do it, and they don't have what the equivalent would be of the ability to carry a tune.
Right. The rough equivalent of kind of hitting the notes for stand-up is still abject failure, probably. For sure.
So, like, a complete inability to hit any notes is just surreal.
Did you start stand-up in college?
No, I wish. I'd be a lot further and better off. Nope. Watched it all the time in college, too. Would quote it to people. I would steal comedians' jokes. I would tell stand-up jokes to my friends. The closest I came to it, I would do funny songs at parties. I had one, this is shameful, called I Think My Roommate's Gay. I learned a very important comedy lesson with that, though. I did it at a party one night. My friends kept egging me on, and I finally did it. It was the first time I'd done it in front of not just 4 people.
Sure.
Brought the house down. And then right when the literal standing ovation subsided, of course everyone was drunk and they couldn't believe I was doing it. Right when that subsided, this dude goes, "Yeah, fuck queers."
Oh, God.
And my roommate, luckily, because I was so, like, taken aback, kicked that guy out without me having to, like, take responsibility. You know what I mean? Like, in front of everyone, be like, "Fuck, get out. That's not what my song's about," or whatever. But it was still, like, I was like, oh, like, my satire sounded real to that guy. That's interesting. Because the song is just about, it's about homophobia, but it's about your own homophobia that you have to, like, come to terms with. But it was stupid. I mean, it was just dumb. It was 22-year-old, like, wouldn't it be funny if you were, like, had a gay roommate and then that made you nervous? But it wasn't like, and fuck that guy. It was just like, how awkward would that be? And
Yeah, but the
you learn a
Neanderthal,
lesson.
right? The Neanderthal doesn't understand what satire or irony is.
And I'm not sure I did. I think for me, it was just like, that would be funny. And I look back on it, there's no lyric in there where I'm like, that was hateful. None of it was hateful.
Mhm.
But actually, do you know the comic Jay White Cotton? He's doing pretty good. Like, I think he's been on last. Anyway, he posted the other day. He said something about, I feel like a lot of problems with that white men run into in the world is where we accidentally cross the line from genuine curiosity into, I think, hateful ignorance. I don't remember how he worded it, but I was like, oh, I was that guy until I was probably 25 or 26.
Yeah.
And that's not, no one feels sorry for us. That's not my point.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that's what that was about. That's the closest I came to it early on, though. That wasn't stand up, but that was me trying to be funny. That's not true. When I was in high school, I did an open mic where I read a funny poem at this like camp. I went to governor's school for the humanities, which is like a summer camp for kids.
Okay.
And we had an open mic, and I did a poem that was full of inside jokes. And all the guys on my hall, because we stayed there for a month. It was
Right.
And that felt great. That was probably like when I really thought, oh, I got to try this.
Yeah.
So then I did the song in college and everything else. I went to law school, and I kept thinking I'm going to try this. I went to Boston College Law School. I kept thinking they have a
Oh, you went to Boston College?
They have a competition every year, and I was like, I'm going to do it. I never did. And then I don't know if this is why. My brother unfortunately got in a lot of trouble. He's in prison now, and I was working
Sorry
my
to hear
first
that.
job out of law school. That's okay. As a public defender, it was a lot of stress, and I was miserable.
Yeah, I
Those
hear.
two things kind of came together, misery.
Mm-hmm.
And I often wonder if being so miserable is what finally spurred me at 25 years old to say, yeah, I'll do it. My wife said, hey, there's this competition. I think you should try it. She knew that I'd always wanted to. And I said, yeah, maybe I will. She's like, well, I signed you up. And I still think I would have backed out maybe had I not just been so unhappy at the time. I was like, yeah, I need something.
Right.
And that
I
was
can't
it.
imagine, like, yeah, if you're a public defender and you have, like, maybe 7 minutes to prepare for a case, and it's, like, several people's, like, lives and future are on you at a day, I can imagine wanting to get a laugh would be
Right.
of urgency.
There's a lot of gallows humor, too,
Uh-huh.
in the public defender community. If you want to be shocked, it's hard for comedians to be shocked. I truly in my heart believe that Dave Attell would be freaked out if he hung around guys who defend sexual predators.
Uh-huh.
It's just they've
Yeah.
seen too much.
I bet that, and you have to put on a certain amount of armor to work with that, because there's always this archetype in like legal shows and police procedurals of the lawyer who will never defend like a guilty person, but there are people that have to do that.
Well, also,
like someone
I mean-
had to represent Gary Glitter the 3 times that he got
For sure.
convicted.
And just my honest belief, and no one has to agree with this, but it's the truth. You're not a moral person if you're a defense lawyer and you're above defending someone who's guilty. Like you're a shitty person, in my opinion. Like if you are a defense lawyer, that means you know about the system and you know how it works and you know what it means and you know what all that stands for and you know what the right to trial and the right to counsel is all about and why it's important.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck you. That you've decided that you're more important than all of that.
Right.
You're not moral at that point. You're
Right.
just selfish.
Everyone still has their right to trial in a jury.
And how do you
Jury.
know? How do you know that person's guilty?
Right.
How do you know? Well, they had it on tape. He walked in and shot. Why? Do you know why? Have you asked that guy why he did it? What if that dude was molesting him?
Mm-hmm.
What if he was molesting his son? Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's just
and those
always
are all
something.
and those are all the things that I think probably most people don't think about, like all those
It's
those
what-
gray areas, because and I might
It's all gray.
yeah, but people don't want to think that it's
No.
gray because people need certainty or else
They want to feel good.
right.
Everyone wants to believe that our justice system is this black and white process, or even if they don't want to believe it's black and white, they want it to say it gets a certain result and there's a finality to it. Neither one of those are true. The
And
results
it's infallible.
are
Never makes a mistake.
right. Neither of those are true. The results rarely are black and white or clear. They're often murky. But
Mhm.
more importantly, and this is what people don't realize, there's no such thing as a happy ending there. Let's say you got a guy and he didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And you fight tooth and nail and you win. You went to trial and you got a not guilty. And everyone goes, oh, see, now that's a happy ending. In that year and a half that it took for you to go to trial, he had to get his name in the paper look his neighbors in the eye, potentially lose his job because of the work that he missed when he got arrested, explain to his family that he didn't do it, go through the fear and the anguish and the humiliation of a trial, win, and then now let's think about the victims. Let's say it was a theft situation. They got robbed.
Mm-hmm.
And this dude didn't do it, so he got off. What about them? Now they just didn't get any justice because the wrong person was arrested by the system.
Right.
So that's like my example of it. And then even in the guilty guy goes away. Well, the crime still happened, and people who didn't do the crime, they have to suffer too. Like, what if that guy has kids or family? And I'm not saying that's any reason to let anybody off. That's not my point. My point is there's no happy ending. There's just, we have to deal with a problem.
Yeah. There's no real closure. There's only, like, at some points it almost seems like it just becomes like revenge. Like,
right.
And that's what people are out for. So
I don't know about victims, but the state is after revenge.
Yeah. So being trapped in that, does comedy help you claw out of that?
I think it did in a lot of ways, yeah. I don't know, man. I have a lot of guilt for quitting. I felt very proud of the work I was doing, and like it was important, but I just couldn't do it anymore.
Sure.
I wasn't built for it. Like, I hated most aspects. I love my clients. I like talking in court. I didn't like paperwork. I never should have went to law school. That was a bit of a mistake. I learned a lot, and it got me out of, Tennessee and stuff. But, yeah, I don't know. I think it helps deal with it. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. And this was in Boston when you started.
I started law school in Boston. I was a public defender in Miami-Dade upon graduating.
Oh, Miami.
Yeah, and then I was a public defender in Knoxville, closer to home. After my brother got arrested, I moved there and started being a public defender there.
Okay. And then what brings you to New York?
My wife's an actor. She got a movie filmed in Oregon, but around the time that happened, she had said she wanted to move. And I had wanted to move. My brother went to prison, as I said, unfortunately. And so that chapter had closed. And I was just I needed to get out of East Tennessee. It felt heavy.
Mm-hmm. Too many reminders of stuff you didn't want to.
Exactly. And so it was like, hey, this is a good time. If the timing's right, you're going to really do this. You followed me to Boston and then Miami and then back home because of my brother. Because, see, we had planned to move to New York, and I was going to be a lawyer here and she was going to be an actor here. Mm-hmm. It just took us forever to get to it. And then when I got up here, I had been doing comedy at that point for about a year and a half, I guess, 2 years, but not that steadily. And when I moved up here, I took a month off from work and I started doing comedy every night. And I was like, wait a minute, this is who I am.
That's great, man. Yeah. I'm glad you had that realization. I had the same thing too. Like the first time I did an open mic at a sports bar where they didn't turn the Ravens game off. And I was being incredibly derivative of Mitch Hedberg. The first time I got like a laugh, I was like, "Oh, okay, this is it." And then just being in the grind and being around of New York and being around all these incredibly funny people who I enjoy, these wacky people, I can't think that I wouldn't want to not be doing it.
Well, I have, I want a life. And I've often thought, can I keep the grind up forever? But I've realized, even if I can't, I'll never stop doing stand-up.
That's good.
Like, I can imagine a scenario like Andy gets pregnant. That's my wife's name.
Mm-hmm. How long have you been married?
Almost 5 years.
5 years?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. I can imagine a scenario where I stop pursuing it as a career.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no scenario where I stop standing up.
Yeah. I worry about because that's a fear I have now that I'm in a good relationship with a good person, is that fear of it not working out of not being able to do it anymore. And it's all in my head, and I feel like realistically it's all in my head,
Probably. Some of that depends on her, I would imagine. I'm very lucky my wife's an actor, and
so she gets it.
And she has a lot of integrity. She can't keep doing what she's doing and ask me to stop. Not that she ever would anyway, but like, she just gets it. Yeah, that's really the best way to phrase it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. So like, let me ask you this as I bring us in for landing here. Is there something? Is there anything that you want to talk about that we haven't touched upon?
No, I didn't really ask you what the theme of yours was. I knew we were going to talk about music.
Well, for you, that's what I really wanted to talk about. I think I got a little bit. I usually like the theme I go for is I like to try to hear people's stories about how they got out of difficult situations. I'm calling the show Awesome and Disaster.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what I think.
I don't know if I've gotten out of the existential disaster that is and was my brother going to prison completely. But a lot happened at once there. I'd just gotten married. I'd just gotten my first real job. And with that came an identity. Being a public defender is an identity. The way the comedian's an identity.
Sure.
So I was a public. It's what I was. It's who I was.
Definitely.
I defend the public. I correct people at parties when they say, "Oh, you're the prosecutor." No, I'm the public defender. How do you defend guilty people? I do it all the time. I love it. Like, that's who I was. I was that person.
Sure.
That was thrust upon me. He was arrested. I was married. Then I decided to quit that. He went to prison, and my marriage was due. It did fine, but like there wasn't a rough patch in the marriage. I was just miserable because of everything that was going on.
And that kind of bled into that bleeds into everything when you're in that. But because I imagine family member going to prison is an incredibly difficult thing to process.
It's really hard to face what all of the consequences of that are. He has three. He had gotten a woman pregnant before he went in, so she was born while he was in prison.
Oh man.
Yeah, the gift that keeps on giving, my brother. I don't, like being awesome in disaster. I don't know that I was awesome.
Well,
I
want to know. Well, I guess I'm curious if all this darkness gets thrust upon you, how did you manage that?
Very poorly at first. Drugs came in, not anything hard. I started smoking a lot of marijuana and drinking more than I usually did. I exercised a lot. When I realized that the drugs and the eating and the drinking were not a good way, I started exercising a lot, and that helped. The darkness, man, it did make me a darker person. I think I was always infatuated with the dark. Growing up religious, I had an obsession with the idea of living forever. Like that's one thing that you're taught, and really, like, you're going to live forever. It scared me. It freaked me out. I thought it was weird. I say that to say I've always had some sort of weird infatuation with the darkness, and I think I very naively craved it a little. And then when it got thrust upon me, I was like, what a silly boy I was.
Yeah.
What a silly, silly boy I was.
Right. When you actually, it's like the ultimate be careful what you wish for.
Exactly. Not that I was wishing my brother would go to prison, obviously, but I was like, I'm interested in this. I know these writers I love, they're always dark, and they've had these things happen to me. And I think some stupid part of me was like, I can't wait for something to happen to me. And then it did, and it was like, fuck. It's the worst.
Is he getting out anytime soon?
He's got 10 years left. He killed a guy.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how much you can talk about it, but he's got.
I can talk about it as much as you want. I mean, I don't know how much you want the weight of this. I mean, it's real heavy.
No, I as deep as you want to go, and then I think we'll have to talk about that Indian summer song.
Okay.
at the end, but. Goddamn, dude! I didn't know that about you. I didn't know that you had to go through that.
Yeah, I mean, well, I had to go through it less than quite a few people. I think I always say to my wife, I'm like that was one thing I kept telling myself and my wife, which she would always say that's not healthy, but I would say I'm like in 7th place in this pity race here. My brother had to go to prison. His wife had to send her husband to prison. His 2 kids at the time had to watch their father go to prison. And then my 2 parents had to watch their son go to prison. So that's 6 people at the time. And then now he's had a daughter, so maybe there's arguably someone ahead of me whose father, when she was born, was in prison. Where I was like, you guys are way ahead of me on the shit that you're going through.
On the pain train.
Yeah, the pain train. That's exactly it.
Damn, man.
Yeah. So
do you feel that, because if you got your first job around this time as well as a public defender, do you feel that his going to prison was factored into your like pride and determination of your work as a public defender at the time? Maybe.
I know that what happened was it changed some things and how I approached it. You can't help it. Like, this is going to sound sort of profound, but it's not. It's just a matter of fact of what happens. When you go through that, when you're talking to a client and looking their mother in the eye and saying, look, I know 8 years sounds like a long time, but if we go to trial, they're going to try to get him for 25.
Mm-hmm.
He should plead guilty because he did it and they got him. And I don't have an argument. That conversation is different when you know what that feels like.
Right.
And I it would be for anybody. Again, that's nothing about me being special or profound. Any human being would know and feel differently after going through it themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
You can have greater empathy for the person, and then probably maybe help them a bit more than someone who hasn't.
Perhaps, and you definitely understand their pain. And I'm not even sure you have to have empathy. You could just think about what happened to you. You know what I mean? You don't even have to say, what's it like for you? You could just say, this is what it was like for me. And you understand the weight of those things, of that conversation, more than you could possibly if you'd never been through it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? When you know what your own mother went through.
Sure.
When you know what your own brother went through. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it affected me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it affected me too. My brother was a drug addict. That was the start of his problems. I had a lot of drug addict clients. That was a problem. I was sad a lot.
Yeah.
Like I would just meet people and and I was a little cynical too. I think they'd be like, Mr. Drew, I want to do this and that. And I'm trying to get. And I'd just be like, okay, kind of in my head, rolling my eyes. Sure you do.
Yeah.
That's what they all say, kind of thing.
The sort of overly ambitious thing kind of comes back, but in a much more twisted way.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's a good point. So yeah, it was. It made it hard. I think. I mean, it's already a hard job. I do think it made it harder.
Yeah.
It didn't make it easier. I know that.
Right.
There was no now I know what it's like, so it's easier.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, fuck, dude. I'm glad
Super
you were able
bummed.
to. I'm as messed up as that is. I'm glad you were able to work through it and process it.
Well, I didn't kill myself, but I'm not sure if I was able to work through it and process. Not that I wanted to. I didn't mean to be dramatic, and I don't mean to be flip about that.
Sure.
I just I'm not sure if I've worked through it. Do you know what I mean? I know that I'm better than I was, but it'll never be great. Like the sadness that I feel for my parents and his sons will never go away. I don't think.
Right. Fuck, man. I'm sorry.
It's weird, right?
Yeah. Well, but it's real. Again, it's like one of those things is like I wish these are moments when like I wish I had the Obi-Wan like really smart thing to say that's gonna.
Yeah, no, I've tried to talk about it in stand-up some, and I can't because in order to introduce the topic that you're talking about, I have to do the background, and that's too much for most audiences. It's so funny, and it's sort of a beautiful thing. It really is.
Yeah.
A human being's need to connect with you, and how uncomfortable that they feel that they can't when you express something sad. You have no idea.
Right.
And you know in your heart, like you specifically, you're talking to me right now. You know that you have no idea what that was like because it's such a unique thing. You've had your own tragedies. I know, and I'm not being flippant about those.
Oh, yeah.
But like
Absolutely.
This thing happened to me that's so weird and unique. But there's this human desire to like say something to make me feel better or connect with me, and you can't. And it's so strange. And I think it's funny. I really do think it's funny. And I've tried making fun of it, and it doesn't work. Because I've had people say things to me. I swear to God, they say things to me like, "Yeah, my sister, she got like her 3rd DUI this year," and like that's super sad. But like, fuck you, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's
but like they don't mean anything negative.
You got shot. I know exactly. I know what you mean. Like,
right.
I had to get a tetanus shot the other day, and
exactly
it was yeah, because there's that, or like I think maybe some people's maybe a comedian's instinct is try to go for the joke or what have you, and then you
People
just have
do that.
nothing in that moment. But yeah, it's like
I've gotten that a few times, and one time it worked in that people laughed, but it was an older comic. It was when I was doing like professional rooms like back home. It was like a headliner. I don't remember who it was, and like the feature and some other comic laughed.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a good joke. They just laughed because of the power structure in that room.
Uh-huh.
And I just kind of looked at the guy, and he's like, "Oh, are you sensitive about it?" And I was like, "No, not at all."
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna laugh at your fucking stupid joke, but I'm also not gonna be like, "Yeah, I'm sensitive about it. You're a prick." I'm like, "You're not getting anything."
Sure.
I was just like, "Oh no, I'm not sensitive at all," and he got super uncomfortable. So yeah, that's the comics thing. The normal human thing is to try and connect with you. I think that comes from a good place.
Yeah, usually it does.
It's bad. Like, you know what I mean? Another thing is people will tell you everything happens for a reason. If anyone's listening right now and you care to take notes, just write this down. Never say that. Ever. There's never a reason to say that things happen for a reason. There's never a reason to say that it's part of God's plan. I don't care who you are or what you believe. Never say that to anybody. Even if you believe it. Just because you believe something doesn't mean you can be an asshole. So never say that to anybody.
Yeah, I don't think that's helped one person ever in the history of language.
It's never been anything.
Like even if there was like a caveman and it was like some sort of like guttural thing and we were communicating via sound, I still don't think it would have helped that person.
No, it's not.
It's almost like you just kind of like,
it makes you angry because this is the thing. If someone says that to you about a tragedy and you believe them, then you just get mad.
Right.
You're like, wait a minute, this was God's plan? What a dick.
Yeah.
And like that's the other thing. Like if there was a God and he like if I were God and I planned for like my brother to do that, I wouldn't want anybody to know that was my plan. I'd be like, don't tell anyone that my plan was that mean.
Yeah. Yeah, because they'll have a lot of questions for me, and I'm not going to be able to answer all of them.
Right.
Other than to just say, mysterious ways.
Right.
And I need to keep the numbers up. They're making more atheists.
And I do
every
think
day.
that people out there, because my family's very religious and my parents sort of fall into this, I think people need to believe in that sometimes. But you can have a faith and not think God has a plan. Like, that's not, you know what I mean?
Right.
So there's no reason.
Yeah, like religion.
So just don't say it, everybody.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because like the religion and faith, don't say it, and then God is one thing, and then everyone finds their other thing. It's like almost like the AA thing. I've never been, but God just is for whatever. They make God whatever it is to get them through the steps.
Mm-hmm.
You know where I think you could tell that story other than the awesome country album that we have to make now?
I would be in for that. I've got some songs.
Me too, dude.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, this is going to happen.
Yeah, it is. That story, I think, like you should, like, I don't know if you've ever gone to like storytelling shows or The Moth, they would, I have a feeling that they would carry you out of that building on their shoulders.
Yeah, well, I don't want it to be for that purpose, but I do need to get it out of me. I've told an 8-minute version of it where the theme was I was 25 and I had a plan. But this thing happened and plans get ruined at the dump at the creek.
Yeah.
And it went pretty well.
Great show.
And it felt good, but I was weird. And that was probably 2 years ago, like when I first moved here. And I haven't told that version of it since. And then Dean Masello has a one-man show he's working on called I'm So OCD. And he had me open for him at QED. And at the time, I was thinking about maybe doing something, and I did a 20-minute version of talking about the trial and my family and pain pills and their effect on the South. It was called Murder Pills Jesus, and I didn't like it.
Yeah,
everyone loved it. People were crying, but I think I'm just not ready to let it go, maybe, and I also don't want to ever be trying to get something out of it.
Sure.
Other than just catharsis.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to feel like you're profiting off of other people's
comedians
misery.
This is part of why I'm drawn to comedy. It's so weird, this thing I have in common with them. I said earlier, I was always sort of perversely interested in struggle. Comedians have that about them. We have this weird interest in the macabre and in the struggle and in people who are hard, people who are tough. So yeah, I tell this story and people suddenly like give me more social cred, and I hate that. I hate that people are like me more because of my brother. That's fucking weird.
It is weird. It is kind of weird.
But I get it. Now let me say that at the same breath. I was that person once upon a time. I was that immature person who's like, that dude's been through some shit.
Yeah.
That's no testament of you who you are as a person. You know, how you react to it may be, but you can't know that in a person just from hearing the story.
Right.
You can't know how they reacted to it. You didn't see me passive aggressively torturing my wife. You know what I mean? Like at night, and her being like, "You're being an asshole right now. Stop."
Right.
So.
Yeah, but you guys are good.
Oh yeah, completely.
That's good to hear. Because I go through a lot of that with my relationship now, like balancing, like the struggle of balancing trying to be ambitious, have a relationship that I spend time with, and we'll wrap up soon.
I'm good.
I find a lot of I find it overwhelming a lot of times to try to balance keeping my girlfriend happy, keeping my current employer until I don't need to work for them happy, and then have comedy feel like it's progressing. How do you, because I know you do, how do you manage to keep the wife and the career and everything in balance?
Well, the comedy career, I just feel like I do everything I can. But my definition of what can I do this week is different than some other people's. And so what I mean by that is, Andy's super understanding, and she's busy herself.
Sure.
So we have these different but similar ambitions that give each other a lot of leeway. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm lucky in that regard. But like some people would say, well, you could have done another mic on Friday and not had dinner with Andy. And I would say, no, I couldn't have. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of work, I'm pretty lucky in that too. I do what's called document review, which is like a boring legal work. And the industry itself is just, it's sort of anonymous. It's kind of soulless. It's pretty terrible. Unless you don't want them to know your name or care how many hours you put it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So that's working out for me in some regards. I'm exhausted all the time. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, me too.
Andy and I do a good job of like Sunday early. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't work. There's no mics or anything to do, and she doesn't have anything to do. So it's like we're just gonna hang out. I think that's easier when you've been married this long. You don't need to go on a date. You can eat breakfast and lay in bed.
Yeah.
Take a nap together. Like that's a date for us. It's pretty good too. We took a nap together today. It's great.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I love like some of my favorite moments, like over these past holidays, like it's just sitting on the couch with my girlfriend and like her mom's there. We're just watching the Food Network. Yeah. Just watching all the banking competition shows. Having serious opinions about like flavor combinations.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like going back to us talking about watching all those Comedy Central specials. Obviously, I heard a lot of what might be considered by some people hack relationship jokes. And I remember getting this view of like this sort of cynical view that comedians had from back then of like, you get married and all you do is watch TV and you hate each other or whatever. And it's like, I've realized as I've gotten older, the reason that older couples never go out is not because like, in some cases it may be because they're bored and they don't want to be around each other and they hate each other. In other cases it may just be because like they just want to hang out at home or whatever.
Right.
So anyway, we do that. Although she's coming around tonight. When I leave here, she's going to meet me. We may do a movie. We may go get some dinner. And then I have a show at 10.
Great. Where are you tonight?
I'm at the Village Lantern.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm probably gonna hit the creek for the 6:00 and then go show face at New York Comedy Club because
it's part of the game apparently.
I did the audition. I was like back in July and not passed for late night yet, but fingers crossed.
When are you gonna audition again? Or is that why you're hanging out? You're trying to.
I'm hanging out. I'm trying to get that like next check spot. I'm trying to get like that next check spot that says, okay, you can do late night, and then we'll start moving up. I don't mind late night. I just want it to actually happen because again, girlfriend lent me some money for people's cover charges for that bringer requirement, and I need her to have a return on the investment.
Yep, that makes sense to me.
All right. Well, fuck, Drew. This. It's been really good talking to you, man. I knew from like the first time I met you, I was like, oh, and we talked about Muscle Shoals. That this guy, I want to be friends with this guy. So I appreciate you talking to
me. Man, cool.
So
everybody listen to Indian Summer by Ja Wolf. We didn't get to that, but do it.
Yeah, Indian Summer by Ja Wolf is probably is your favorite electronica song this year.
The only one I know or like ever. I don't think I could name you another electronica song.
Yeah, it's this and I like the second Daft Punk album. And then
Oh, is that
it.
considered? Okay, yeah.
I would call that
All right,
electronic,
all right.
electronic or dance.
Okay.
We might have to do another where we just talk about bands we like for like a length of time.
Cool. Or we could just write country music songs, not on air, and do it that way.
Well, if we write one and it's good, you should come back and we'll play it.
All right, cool.
All right, cool, man. Thank you, Drew.
Yeah.